Hello and welcome. This is my video review of the Puredrive Hybrid 2 battery storage system. Now if you're here, you might already have solar panels on the roof and you're thinking of adding some battery storage to the home. You can make use of the extra solar energy you produce during the summer, and during the winter you can charge it from the mains, cheap electricity overnight, and use that power during the day. Great idea. As to whether they're viable economically, that's perhaps for another video. So the key question is, should you buy a Puredrive hybrid battery for the home? The simple answer is no. Absolutely not. It'll drive you nuts for a start. If that's all the information you need, move on. Look at other YouTube videos. There are plenty about there for Tesla Powerwalls, Sonnen, LG Chem. There's a lot more home storage batteries than you might think, and they're not all created equal. Some are better than others. So if you'd like to stay in the middle of another lockdown, I could do with a company, and I'll explain why and some of the issues I've had with this machine. So let me explain how I ended up with one of these machines and the issues I've had in the last week. Tomorrow this is going to be taken away. It was installed in January 2021. I had ordered the Tesla Powerwall, and as if you've been looking for one yourself, you'll realise they're like the proverbial rocking horse droppings. So I was talked into having this Puredrive battery because I was told it would do certain things and it was better than the Tesla. However, it is a British company, which was another reason actually why I thought, oh, I could try and support a British company, and hopefully the experience would be a lot better than it has been. So let me explain. When you think about a battery storage for the home, most you'll see on the market are usually between 4 or 5 kilowatts, and there are obviously larger ones. If you're going to have a home, it's a family home and there's more than 2 or 3 of you, the electricity consumption in a day is going to be more than 10 kilowatts. We use about 11 a day. We also have a couple of electric cars that get charged, and we charge them in the winter time overnight using the Octopus tariff, which we only pay 5p a kilowatt. But it's not the economy 7, you only get 4 hours of it. But it does mean I can fill the Leaf up, for instance, stick 30 kilowatts in it for £1.50, and I get 120 miles out of that. Compare that to getting that kind of petrol money, and it's a fraction of the price. So battery storage, you're going to use it in the summer to take excess energy, fill the battery up, and then use it when it goes dark. But if you've got a family home, during the winter you need to charge it from economy electricity during the night, and then during the day use it. So if you only get a 5 kilowatt battery, when all the kids come home from school, you come home from work, you've got the oven on, people having showers, a little 5 kilowatt battery, the actual usable battery in that is only really 3 kilowatts, because you don't want to go below 20%, and you don't really want to keep charging it above 85%. So you've only got a 3 kilowatt usable. This is what I found when I started looking at batteries. This is 10 kilowatts, so I've got probably 6 kilowatts, which for me and the missus and the dog, that's more than enough overnight. We don't have an electric shower, we have a gas heating system, so the oven will take a draw. But that's the other thing, these output electricity and they'll use the mains electricity. So if you've got things like showers on, which are very high usage energy, then the battery will just supplement the grid. So it will help reduce, but you'll never ever get your money back for the battery. Solar panels, yeah, between 7 and 12 years, depending on where you live, how much sun you get over the time, and obviously how much you spent in the first place. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. Why is this going back? Why is it being returned? In fact, it's going to the suppliers, somebody in the suppliers organisation, who are going to try and set it up and actually get it to work properly. And that's one of the key things here. You need an installer who actually knows what he's doing. So when it does arrive, it is installed correctly. Now let's get the really nitty-gritty here. This box, unassuming as it is, this monolithic box here, can kill you. That's a fact. Any electrical appliance can kill you. But this one in particular, why? Because this is a VPP. This is a virtual power plant. So there's 10,000 watts of power in this machine. 10,000 watts of power. And it outputs mains electricity. So that's 240 volts, high ampage. So just as if somebody was getting electric shocked in the house, this is quite capable of that. You wouldn't plug your fingers into a diesel generator outside, would you? Or you wouldn't want to do that with this. So safety's got to be a concern. So the first thing I noticed when it was delivered, come on a pallet, there's no safety information on this box anywhere. There's nothing. Now the UK law requires that there should be on this machine, clearly visible, some safety information to say that it's passed the relevant safety regulations in the UK. As it was delivered in 2021, there are slightly different updated laws because we've left the EU. But the actual requirements are still there until 2022, and then they get updated. There's nothing on this machine at all. So then you get down to installation. So that was my first concern, there's no safety information. Now this battery, as advertised on the internet and on the brochures, will support critical systems in your house. So that means if there's a power cut, we get 1 or 2 a year here. The longest one we had was about 18 months ago, which was over 3 hours long. Luckily, modern freezers will last, but we had no internet, no lights, no sockets. So one of the selling points, I suppose, was the fact that if we did get a power cut, then this device would in fact keep things going in the house. It's not going to keep an electric shower running. It's not going to allow you to charge your car. It's just to keep your lights on, your sockets in the house. It would keep our gas heating on because it's just the ignition for the gas, so it would keep our gas boiler working. And the internet, the router, the plugs, that kind of thing. So you've got the basics to survive. So when anarchy finally descends in the UK and we just end up a few houses with solar panels and batteries and a queue of people outside wanting a cup of tea, that's probably going to happen in my lifetime. So let's have a quick closer look at the machine. So as you can see, there's not much to it. It's just this white box, panels. It can be installed inside or outside. It needs an internet connection, and then it's obviously got to be wired in. And this disc here, as you'll see from the pictures you've just seen, glows. What does that do? It's not a switch, it's not a button, it doesn't seem to do anything. Is it telling you that it's on? Does it change colour when something's wrong, when it's draining? No idea. You know why? Because there's no instructions. This is the operating information for the owner that they get when this is delivered. A few bits of photocopied, grubby photocopied paper with a staple in. If I spent £8,000 or £9,000 on a car, I get a nice thick book and it would tell me everything I need to know. How to use things, what they did, what they didn't do, all the warnings, all the safety information. It'd all be in this booklet. You get a nice little booklet. In fact, pretty much anything you buy these days, either you'll get a booklet with it, and you should certainly get safety information with it, and then you can download proper instructions if you need them. Clear, clean English instructions so you understand how to do it. And with something as potentially dangerous as this, you need that information. So what do you get? A few bits of paper. So as I said before, this has potential to kill people, just as any electrical appliance. So where's the on and off button? So there's an issue in the house, and I need to switch this machine off for safety. I need to stop it pumping out electricity. Now this is not just to do with the Puredrive. as I've seen and realised now, a lot of these home storage batteries do not have accessible isolation switches. There is a switch, it's inside the machine on the inverter. How am I supposed to get to that? There's an emergency, somebody's in the kitchen getting electrocuted. The first thing I want to do, I'm going to switch the mains off at the wall. This then kicks in to power the mains on the wall, so the person's still getting electrocuted. How do I switch it off? There's nothing. Now, how the UK government have allowed, or any government in fact, have allowed such a dangerous device to not have a very easily accessible on and off button. Now, because this works outside, I understand that it's got to be relatively watertight, but a little flap that you can lift up and click a button, a mechanical breaker, should be the minimum that this machine has. It's not got that. So then the next phase, when that goes out to your distribution board to send electricity around your house, there should be a breaker there to allow you to switch it off. There should be next to your distribution board, where you would have your main fuse, an extra independent isolation switch to stop this from continuously powering in cases of a danger to life. So you should be able to switch it off. Clearly marked and clearly labelled to say you've got to switch this off as well as the mains. Otherwise, switching the mains off actually switches this on to do its job. There's nothing. Now that's partly due to the installer not fitting a safety cutout. There are in the instructions, the installation instructions, explaining that there should be a cutout there. For some reason, the company that fitted this didn't fit it. So on the website, they advertise that this will power critical systems, as I mentioned before. What they don't tell you is, and it's nowhere in the information, it's not on the website, it's not on their little fancy video they have at the bottom on the front page, they just say it does it. What they don't tell you is it's optional. And optional means you've got to have extra circuits added to your distribution board, basically a mini distribution board, I don't know, fitted on to the board you've got already. I'm not technical, so I don't understand this, but I do understand the concept. So that if the mains goes off and you've got a power cut, the battery then supplies those circuits that you want keeping on. That's not that difficult, is it, to sort out? It's just a few fuses on a board supplied, and then you would actually have an isolation switch on that extra fuse box. So you could switch off both quite easily and quite quickly and understand what they are. My biggest concern then is safety. So if me and the missus retire in a few years, which we're hoping to do, and we move out of this house, and a family move in, because it's a family house, and little Jimmy in his bedroom wants another socket, because these days houses were built years ago with very few sockets for modern life, and we've never got enough now, have we? So he wants an extra socket in his bedroom so he can plug his computer in and his games and everything. So Grandad comes along, switches off the mains, goes back up to the room, starts faffing about with the old electric socket. Zzz, he's dead. Because there was no information to isolate this battery, because it's actually, when the mains goes off, it's trying to do its job and powering the house. So this is not just the Puredrive that seems to be an issue with. It seems to be an issue with a lot of the batteries that supply houses with electricity when the mains are off. So if you're thinking of one, you must ensure that if you have it installed, be it Tesla, Sonnen, LG Chem, Puredrive, whatever make, that it's installed correctly, that the relevant safety information is very clear. So if there's an issue in the house, and thousands of people get electrocuted every year at home and in the workplace obviously, so these things do happen. So in that event you want to be able to isolate any electricity to stop it from causing any further harm. That was my biggest concern. The fact that there's no instructions, just this owner manual tells me to fiddle about with batteries inside it. It tells me there's no thank you for buying it. It's just without the written consent of Puredrive. Hold on, that's the first thing I get to is without the written consent. oh right, okay. So they're telling me I can't copy this owner information straight away. Not welcome to your Puredrive Energy Solutions storage device. Thank you for purchasing this device. No, not even a thank you or welcome, nothing. It's just, you mustn't do this without caution, blah blah blah. So it's a bit of technical information. Then you get what's in the booklet. It's not even a booklet, it's just a few sheets. Then you get a badly photocopied diagram of how it's supposed to be working. You get all the product information, supposedly of your device. But as you can see, if you can see that, I hope that focuses, it's actually blank. There's no information there. So it just says identifying the product. So I'm reading this thinking, okay, how do I use it? So the next page, safety. Great, you've got to have some safety information. And it tells you continuous operation of the device. Well, you want it to be continual operation. It gets dangerous, it becomes dangerous. Okay, right, okay, I'm reading all these things. And it's basically do's and don'ts. Really, you don't want to be touching physically the machine other than to switch it on and off if there's, in the event of an issue, be a fire in the home or whatever. But that's not there. Caution, warning, and then it goes on to another caution, and then it comes to battery operation. This is the owner's information. So it tells me on battery startup that make sure there is no damage on battery and all wires are correctly connected and tight. What? The batteries are inside this box. How am I supposed to check that all the wires are correctly connected and tight? Shouldn't my installer have done all that, or shouldn't the factory have made sure everything was right before they sent it? And then it tells me to switch on the 125 amp MCB on top of each battery. 125 amp on each battery. So that means, do I have to take the body of this off, get in there and be messing about with 10,000 watts of power? Surely that's wrong. Shouldn't the installer be doing this? And then it goes on to tell me how to shut it down, which is basically the reverse of what I've just done. But it actually says to switch off the batteries, and then the next instruction is turn off the inverter before switching off the batteries. So that's backwards. It should say turn the inverter off, which again is inside, it's up here. Turn that off first. And then the next bit of information is portal VRM. So this system has a remote monitoring system. Okay, I'm not that technical. I don't even know what a VRM is. Do you? No. But doing some research, I think it's the Victron remote monitoring. Now inside here is the Victron inverter. I have a solar edge inverter for the roof, which works great, by the way, super system, and that's where the energy comes from when the solar panels are working. As we're up north, and it is grim up north, in the winter time we don't get much sun. So I've actually had no solar production for about 2 weeks because we've had completely overcast skies. During the summer months it's pumping out 25 to 30 kilowatts a day, and I don't get to use all that energy because we don't use that much electricity, hence getting the battery so I can save some of it. So it says getting started with VRM. You've got to register, you've got to access something on the internet, you've got to download an app, but I've no means of actually accessing the app. And again, that's something really the installer is supposed to get it all set up for you. And then there's again a badly faded, badly photocopied diagram of what you're supposed to be seeing and what that information is. But you can't see it because it's so badly photocopied. Why oh why they can't just produce, if you're going to spend £8,000-9,000, why can't they produce a simple 3 or 4, 5, 6 page document in colour that just folds up, a little pamphlet, anything, just to make this more presentable? And then it goes on to warranty. Basically they provide a warranty if it's installed correctly, but they don't actually come and check that the installation has been done correctly. So again, I go back to making sure the installer you're using with this battery or any battery, doesn't matter what make it is, knows what they're doing. The training, obviously, because of the situation in the UK at the moment, which is probably going to be prevalent for quite some time. It's all done virtual. And most electricians know what they're doing, they know which wires go where, which plugs there. I've got some big cut-offs. I know when this solar panel system was installed and the inverter, it was very clear what these two big buttons do, these big switches, and they switch everything off for safety. There's none of that with this. There's nothing on it. I can switch that solar edge inverter off in a split second and I can clearly see. No problem. But if the electric goes off, it goes off. No problem. So then you think, alright, next page, that'll be instructions. No. But actually, the last page is a copy of somebody's email from Puredrive. It's somebody's printed out a copy of some email with passwords for the CEO of Puredrive. That's quite interesting. I've got some login details for some device that actually belongs to Puredrive. So I'm not sure what this information is for. It says Puredrive installer and homeowner. Now we come on to another issue. I've had no access to this machine. I tried downloading the app, couldn't access the app, couldn't access this machine. I couldn't register with the Vitron because I had no information with which to do so. Apparently an installer was supposed to set it up, which he said he did, to check its working. Because I was quite concerned about the safety, I said to them, and when they came to test it covering the critical systems, I knew it wasn't going to work because I knew the installer had followed the instructions he'd got, which was to put the machine in as a battery. The instructions in the installation guide was basically as bad as this, just photocopied pieces of paper, and it was incorrect. So he wired it up as he thought he should, and as he did to the wiring diagram, which is similar to what I've got in this these pieces of paper. So when he wired it in, there was no critical systems cover, so he switched all the electric off, and nothing happened other than everything went off. The battery didn't do anything, no supply was to me lights, it went dark. So then I decided that the lack of information, the fact I can't switch this or isolate this, means that this is, whenever the electricity is on, this is live feeding electricity directly to my mains. So I said it needs to come out, it's not right, it's not safe. And then the next day somebody from Puredrive rang me about my concern, so I'd rung the company about it. How do I switch it off? Well, there is no on and off, they admitted. There's a switch inside, but I'm not allowed to take the casing off, quite rightly. There should be an isolator in between here somewhere to the junction box. My distribution board is just behind this wall here. This is the garage. So when I checked, told them there's no switch button to switch off, no switch, no fuse box to switch off, nothing. Oh well, there should be. Well, there isn't. Okay, right. So it's just live. It's just pumping out. So this guy rang me up, the CEO of Puredrive, who had to make sure I knew he was the CEO and that I was very privileged that the CEO of Puredrive had rung me. Just because I'm from up north doesn't mean I'm some pleb who's uneducated and doesn't understand these kind of things. So I found him quite a bit patronising. He did admit that they didn't actually produce a nice brochure or instructions for the machine, and perhaps they might think about it. The safety information is not great. There's no safety information on the actual product. It should be there somewhere so you can see it. And as I keep repeating, it should have an on and off button to stop it from doing what it's supposed to do in case there's an event in your house. Now let's look at some of the plus points. The battery has lithium phosphate batteries. Now if you compare that to probably the most popular home storage or the two most popular home storage batteries, which are the Sonnen in Europe and obviously worldwide the Tesla Powerwall, you've probably, if you've searched the internet, seen videos about issues with fire with lithium-ion batteries, be that a Tesla car. I've got two electric cars, no issues whatsoever. But yes, there are instances where chemical composition of the batteries means if they do set fire, they can be an issue. If you looked at if you ever watched the Grand Tour, Jeremy Clarkson, Hamster, etc. If you go to one of the episodes where he drove an electric car, I think it was a Rimac, managed to crash it like he seems to do regular, and Hamster set fire to the car. It was in a field upside down. Luckily he was okay. But if you watch it, you'll note that the car just kept setting itself back on fire for days afterwards. And those are the kind of issues you can have with lithium ion. So all credit to Puredrive. Battery chemistry in here is great. However, the Victron inverters they use in these machines, they're more well known for marine installations. And they do produce, they're one of the best suppliers. They're from the Dutch, from Netherlands. So if you don't particularly want to buy Chinese, which unfortunately we seem to be forced into these days, you can buy something that's made in Europe. The problem is, as recently happened, one of these Victron inverters basically exploded and disintegrated inside the casing. I think thankfully the casing protected it from causing any other damage, and it was taken out, removed and sent back to Puredrive, and that's from another installer I spoke to who was looking at actually getting me a Tesla Powerwall installed. So he had a few concerns. Things like that have to be reported. Just any kind of installation, electrical installation, should always be checked, and they do something called commissioning. So I know it's a bit of a waffle, all this video, but it's information that you might find useful, hopefully. So then I found out when this gentleman rang me that he was looking at this machine in my home. He'd access through my router, my internet, this machine. I had no access to it. He was going to control this machine and tell it what to do. So I asked him, have you got permission to access something in my property? His basic attitude was, he doesn't need permission. You've got our machine, he said. We access that machine. So straight away there's quite an issue with data. Everywhere you go these days about data, it's all about how our data is being used, what's being collected about us, and as you're probably aware, over the last few years, when we're in the European Union and even British law now, they've tightened up and tightened up and tightened up all as much as they can to protect us, to protect us as adults, our children, how they access the internet, all these kind of things. So when you whether it's downloading an app, getting a new phone, computer, actually we've even got a washing machine that's connected to the internet, and it tells me that when it's ready. So if I'm doing something else somewhere else, the phone tells me it's ready. But I had to give permission for that machine, that washing machine, to access the internet. When I get a new computer, I have to go through a series of questions on what level of data that computer is allowed to collect about me. We actually got a Dell for the wife for Christmas so she can work more from home. We had to go through a series of questions and yes and no. So is it allowed to collect this data? Is it allowed to access that data? No. Can it do this? Well, yeah, you want it to tell it if there's something wrong. Yeah, no. With Puredrive, nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm sure if I signed into the Victron portal and set up an account with them like they asked you to do, I'd have to go through a series of allowing them to access it. But the app that Puredrive have, I think there's less than 10 people actually got one and using it. That's just a monitoring app to show you. So I've still got no instructions how to operate it, how to set it up, how to tell it what to do, and what's the best way to use it. But more importantly, somebody else has got that information of my machine. Now, why is that important? Well, if you allow an outside company, now I've got a machine upstairs that's connected to a company in Taiwan, and I had to go through a series of allowing what level of access, mainly because they can remotely check the condition of the machine I've got upstairs. I've got a smart TV, the same when I set that up, so that's going probably to Japan or somewhere. I used to have printers, big printing machines, and they were remotely monitored, so if I had an error code, so those kind of things are useful, but you still have to agree to that. but you're allowing a third party access into your property. So Puredrive, not a particularly big company, you have no idea how secure their servers are or their data control is. You've absolutely no idea. So even big companies, a couple of weeks ago it was reported about Nissan. Now my Leaf, I can operate all sorts of things on it, and the system was hacked by an outside source simply by using the password admin to get into it. So a big international company had set up, and somebody had used admin. So there's an issue now that they can access the car. Luckily there's no personal data stored. There is on the app, because you've got your personal details when you register and pair your app with the car. So with this is the same. I don't know what Puredrive are collecting, what data they have about me. They know its location, it's connected to the internet, they know how it's using, and they're collecting operational information. And that's the same for the others. If you have a Tesla Powerwall, Tesla are well known to be almost paranoid about collecting as much data as they can, be it for the cars or the solar panels or their batteries. And in some ways that's good, because they know how efficient these things are, and they know how they're operating, and Tesla in particular are always trying to improve what they do. They're not always the best thing, but they do try to improve things. And your car might get an update, and your battery might get an update to make it more efficient. And also they do things like monitor the weather. So at the moment it's very cloudy, overcast, we've not got much sun. So if this was a Tesla, it would know that, and it would have filled itself up as much as possible during the cheap electricity. So I've got plenty during the day. So the data is interesting. The fact that they do it without your permission is worrying, and what data they're collecting they won't tell you. Now I have rang them and tried to I spoke to somebody called Daniel there, and I asked that the data controller, because this is being picked up in the morning, I asked that the data controller delete all the information about me and all the information that they've collected about this device. They have to do that by law at my request, and somebody has to be responsible. As of yet, nothing's happened, and they've not done that. So that's again quite worrying. Now finally, we need to look at other aspects of battery storage. If you're going to have a battery storage at home, you need to find a good position for it. Ours is in the garage, our box is behind there. If this is too far away and you've got it on the outside, then it can cause issues. There'll be a loss, but it will work actually up to 25 metres, so that's a good thing. But then you've got the problems of wiring in internet into this, and it's not just a simple jack plug on the side, it is wired into a jack plug inside the machine. I would suspect that's partly because it does work outside and they want it to be weatherproof. But if your cable's exposed to the elements, an Ethernet cable is going to deteriorate quite quickly, and do you really want to have to call out an expensive engineer just to plug in a new cable? So that's a little issue to think about if you're going on an outside area. We had a link through a TP link to the internet box in the living room, went through the mains electricity, went into the device. As far as I'm aware, it did work, but you would need quite a modern Cat7 lead, which luckily the installers did supply for me. So in summary, I'm very disappointed with my experience, both with the installer, because they didn't take enough time, because this was their first machine, they didn't take enough time and effort to make sure it was right. We've had some issues with the company. It took them ages to sort the solar out, and it took them ages to admit they couldn't get the Tesla Powerwall. And on paper, this machine, which one little thing to think about, Puredrive advertise it in their brochures, made in the Britain, Brittam. That should have just given me a little bit of warning as to what to expect from this company. When the document you get says made in the Britain, you worry. And in fact that's untrue, because the components inside the machine are not made in Britain, or made in the Britain as they say. They basically assembled here, so it's assembled in the UK, and that's what it should say. It's no detriment to the device. So it's got components in from various parts of the world, and they've got a nice casing, and then they stick it all together. So it's assembled in the UK. I'm sure there's some minimum criteria to actually say manufactured in the UK, but as there's no manufacturer's information on the device, you can't check that, can you? So my experience was very disappointing. If this video helps you make a decision, don't be put off about battery storage. Just understand that there are dangers, and I do mean dangers. A bad installer could leave your house exposed and leave your family exposed to danger. If these machines keep being churned out with inadequate information about safety, inadequate information about how to install them, and a follow-up system to make sure they are installed and operated, Puredrive wouldn't let the installer commission this device. They said they would do it. They were taking that away from the installer. They're not here on site to check the wires coming out of it and where they're all going and what they're doing. They're concerned with, we're accessing that machine, we're controlling that machine, that's good enough for us. That's not good enough for me. It's my machine. I've paid thousands of pounds for this. The least I expect is knowing how to use it, and that information being given to me, how best to use it, how efficiently to use it, and, as I said many times now, the facility to switch it off. One last point for you: insurance. If you have insurance in your house and you install a battery, a large capacity battery in particular, and solar panels, you should inform your insurance company, and your insurance company will ask you the value, whether it's 10, 15, 20,000 pounds, whatever you spend, and they'll possibly, now they have started asking, what is the chemistry of the battery? Because of issues with fire and safety, obviously electronics like this have to be installed with a proper installer who's certified with electricity, and my solar panels and all the gubbins here have safety warning notice on everything, so it's very clear. Safety warning notice on the Puredrive? Nothing, absolutely nothing. But I think that is the same for a lot of these batteries on the market now. They seem to think they're above having the safety information. So if you're thinking of a Sonnen or an LG or a Tesla, see if you can find someone who's got one and go and have a look at it. If it's working well, great. If this had been installed correctly, connected to critical systems, came with a decent instruction book, and I could switch it off with a breaker, it wouldn't be going back. I won't be making this video. But I'm so concerned about data, about safety, about bad installers not putting these in, about the poor attitude from Puredrive, which is a shame. It's a British company, and you really, in this day and age, now we are back to just being the UK, even though that's a bit fragmented. We do need support to support the green movement, and that means solars, wind farms, battery storage, electric cars, getting your double glazing done to better standards, getting, if you are on gas, which unfortunately we have to be, when we get a nice heat source pump eventually, we will have electrical everything, and we'll be generating and saving as much energy as we possibly can to take pressure off the grid, keep it clean, because if you ever watch Fully Charged, one of my favourite shows, stop burning stuff. And if you're here watching this video, hopefully you've taken some of those steps to stop burning stuff and be more self-sufficient. You'll never get your money back on a big battery like this, so don't buy it to make your money back. There is trading coming in for a lot of battery storages, but the reality is you're going to use 6 kilowatts in a day yourself. So if it fills up in the morning or overnight and sells that electricity, you might be buying it for 5p, so that's 30 pence for 6 kilowatts, and you might be able to sell it at the most maybe for 20p at peak time But then if it's taken off this device, you might make 10 or 15 pence a day. You're not going to make thousands like some of these companies are advertising. This will never pay for itself. The solar panels will, but using the solar with this, with a battery storage, is a good idea. I know going green is expensive at the moment. I'm sure the price of these will come down. This is well overpriced. It's about double the price it needs to be. 10 kilowatts. If it's so much per kilowatt per battery, and they say they're getting down to around the £100 or $100 mark for energy now per kilowatt. It's £1,000 worth of batteries in there. The inverters, £300 or £400. So that box and the nice case and putting it together is probably a couple of grand. So they're going to make a profit, and the fitters. It should be selling at $3,995. That's how much it should be. People are selling these, and the same with the Tesla. Tesla's overinflated in price, but the Tesla does get a separate controller. So these are anything between 8 and I've seen one as much as 12 grand installed just for the battery. So do shop around whichever battery you choose. I hope this has been helpful, and thank you if you've managed to stay all the long way. I probably waffled a bit. I'm not a YouTuber, so if you look at my other videos, they're all about trains. So please, thank you. Take care, look after yourself, go green, stop burning stuff, as they say. I just wish it was all a bit cheaper and a lot easier and less complicated. Thank you.